Picture two windows on the same street. Behind the first, someone earning $50,000 a year sits at a kitchen table with a warm mug and an open notebook, unhurried. Behind the second, someone earning $150,000 is hunched at a cluttered desk, head in hand, an envelope stamped overdue beside the calculator, while a clock ticks past midnight. 3 times the income. And yet the lower earner is quietly building real wealth, while the higher earner sits one bad month from falling apart. So how does the person earning a third as much end up further ahead? That gap is the whole video. 10 years before that midnight desk and that overdue envelope, both of these people started in roughly the same place. Both rented small apartments and drove used cars. Each of them checked their bank balance with the same low hum of worry that almost everyone carries in their 20s. The difference between them was never the starting line. It was a series of quiet decisions that nobody around them ever noticed. Decisions that compounded into 2 completely different lives. Let me introduce you to the version of this story that plays out in millions of American households right now. Meet Imani. She earns $50,000 working as a coordinator at a regional logistics company in a mid-sized city. Her apartment is a modest 1-bedroom with good light and almost no clutter. And meet Whitney. Whitney earns $150,000 as a senior manager at a firm downtown, with the corner office and the title and the kind of salary that makes people assume she has it all figured out. By every visible measure, Whitney is winning. By every measure that actually matters, Imani is pulling ahead. And by the time this video is over, you will understand exactly why, down to the dollar. The first thing almost nobody calculates correctly is what that bigger salary is actually worth once it lands in your account. When you hear $150,000, your brain quietly assumes it means 3 times the spending power of $50,000. It does not. Taxes do not scale politely. As income climbs, more of each additional dollar gets pulled into higher brackets, and payroll taxes take their slice on top. The person earning $50,000 keeps a surprisingly large share of what they make. Meanwhile, the one pulling in $150,000 watches a much heavier percentage vanish before the money ever reaches their checking account. The gap in take-home pay is real, but it is nowhere near triple. After taxes, the higher earner might bring home a little over twice what the lower earner does, not 3 times as much. I want you to sit with that for a second, because the entire feeling of being rich on a 6-figure salary is built on a number that was already shaved down before anyone got to spend it. Here is where the trap springs shut. The higher earner does not budget around their real take-home pay. They budget around the fantasy of the gross number. They feel like a $150,000 person, so they spend like one. And spending like one is exactly how the trouble begins. Which brings us to the single most expensive habit in modern American life, and almost no one sees it happening to them in real time. It has a name. Economists call it lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep. The idea is simple and brutal. Every time your income rises, your spending quietly rises to match it until the raise that was supposed to set you free just buys you a more expensive version of the same stress. The bigger paycheck arrives, so does the bigger apartment, the nicer car, the better neighborhood, the upgraded phone, the food delivery that used to be a treat and is now just Tuesday. None of it feels reckless. Each individual upgrade feels completely reasonable. That is what makes it so dangerous. Whitney did not blow her money on anything wild. She never gambled, and she never made a single purchase her friends would call irresponsible. What she did instead was say yes to a slightly better version of everything, one reasonable choice at a time, until every dollar of that impressive salary had a job to do before it even arrived. The luxury crossover in the driveway, the apartment with the rooftop view, the gym membership she barely uses, the streaming services she forgot she had. Her lifestyle expanded to swallow her income whole. If you sat down with Whitney's monthly statement, nothing would jump out as reckless. A large slice goes to the mortgage on the home in the good school district. Another goes to 2 car payments and the insurance that rides along with nicer vehicles. Then come the subscriptions, the dining out, the weekend trips that quietly became routine, the wellness apps, the convenience services that buy back a little time. Each line item is defensible on its own. Stacked together, they leave almost nothing behind. Imani's statement tells a different story entirely. Her rent is reasonable, her 1 car is paid off, and the largest single line in her whole budget is the automatic transfer that sweeps money into her investments before she can touch it. It is the same handful of categories on both statements, arranged in a completely different order of priority, and that order is what builds the gap. And somehow, it gets worse. Because once your lifestyle climbs to a certain level, it almost never comes back down on its own. Spending is sticky. You can get used to a nicer life in a single weekend, but giving it up feels like failure, like going backward, like admitting something. So the higher earner stays locked at the top of their own income, running just to stay in place. Imani, on the other hand, did something that felt almost boring at the time. When small raises came her way, she let her lifestyle stay roughly where it was and sent the difference somewhere it could grow. She skipped the rooftop view and the luxury crossover, making a quiet, deliberate decision to keep her spending from chasing her income up the ladder. There is a simple move hiding inside that decision, one anyone can copy regardless of income. When a raise or a bonus arrives, you bank it instead of absorbing it. The day the bigger paycheck lands, you nudge up the automatic transfer into your investments by most of that raise before your lifestyle ever gets a taste of it. You never miss money, you never started spending. Imani treated every raise as a chance to widen the distance between earning and keeping, never as a license to live larger. Whitney treated every raise as a green light to upgrade. The raises themselves were identical. What differed was instinct. And the instinct is the whole ballgame. The person who banks the difference turns an ordinary career into quiet wealth. The person who spends the difference turns a great salary into an expensive life with nothing underneath it. That single difference in behavior is the seed of everything that follows. And it leads directly to the most important idea in this entire video. Wealth is not built by what you earn. It is built by the gap between what you earn and what you keep. That gap has a name, and the name is your savings rate. Your savings rate is the percentage of your income you actually hold on to and put to work. It is the one number that predicts your financial future better than your salary ever could. And this is the part that breaks people's brains, so let me walk you through it slowly with real figures. Imani earns $50,000 and saves 20% of it. That comes out to $10,000 a year flowing into investments. Whitney earns $150,000, 3 times as much, and after her inflated lifestyle takes its cut, she manages to save about 5%. 5% of $150,000 is $7,500 a year. Read those 2 numbers again. The person earning $50,000 is putting away $10,000 a year. Their higher paid neighbor, pulling in $150,000, is putting away $7,500. So the lower earner saves $2,500 more every single year, despite earning $100,000 less. That is not a typo, by the way. That is the entire engine of this story humming in plain sight. Now let that gap run through time, because money does not sit still. Money compounds. Say both of them invest into a diversified basket of index funds, the kind that has historically returned somewhere around 7% a year on average once you account for inflation over the long run. We are not talking about a savings account here, and we will get to savings accounts in a moment, because that distinction matters enormously. We are talking about ownership in the broad market growing over decades. After 30 years of saving $10,000 a year at that long-run average, Imani, the $50,000 earner, ends up with nearly $950,000. Whitney, the $150,000 earner, saving $7,500 a year, ends up with around $700,000. The person who earned a third as much finishes more than $200,000 ahead. I mean, think about that for a second. A six-figure salary, a corner office, a title that impresses people at parties, and she still loses the race to a coordinator with a modest apartment and a stubborn savings habit. The salary lost. The behavior won. And honestly, the example I just gave Whitney is generous. Plenty of high earners are not saving 5% at all. With lifestyle creep running at full tilt, many are saving almost nothing, or worse, sliding backward into debt while their income looks magnificent on paper, which is exactly what the most recent national data shows, and the numbers for 2026 are genuinely striking. As of early 2026, the United States personal savings rate has been sliding the wrong direction, drifting down from around 4.5% at the start of the year toward the mid 3% range by spring. Incomes have actually risen. People are earning more than they were a year ago, and yet they are keeping less of it than almost any point in recent memory. That is the treadmill economy in one statistic. You run faster, you earn more, and you somehow end up with less margin than before. It gets more uncomfortable when you look at who is struggling. Surveys in 2026 put the share of Americans living paycheck to paycheck at more than half the country. You might assume that is purely a low-income problem. It is not. Roughly 4 in 10 people earning over $100,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. One major Wall Street survey even found that a striking share of people earning more than $300,000 a year described themselves the same way. Let me say that plainly. There are households pulling in $300,000 a year that are one missed paycheck from trouble. The problem was never that they did not earn enough. The problem is that their spending grew to match and then quietly outran everything they brought in. This is the contingent that financial analysts have started calling HENRYs. The acronym stands for High Earner, Not Rich Yet. Big income, beautiful lifestyle, and shockingly little actual wealth underneath it. The whole structure is a stage set. It looks like prosperity from the street. Step inside and the foundation is hollow. So, why does the high earner get trapped while the average earner slips free? A huge part of it comes down to something most people never think about until it is too late. Fixed costs. When you earn more, the upgrades you buy are not usually one-time splurges. They are recurring obligations that show up every single month for years. A bigger mortgage is not a purchase. It is a commitment that follows you for decades. A luxury vehicle is not just a sticker price. It is a higher monthly payment, pricier insurance, and more expensive repairs month after month after month. The private school, the bigger utility bills on the bigger house, the lawn service, the second car. Each of these is a fixed cost that arrives on schedule whether or not you had a good month. Imani's life is built mostly on flexible costs. Her rent is modest, her car is paid off, and a huge slice of her income stays liquid and free to move. If she ever needs to tighten up, she can, almost overnight. Whitney's life is the opposite. So much of her income is locked into obligations that she has very little room to maneuver. Her enormous paycheck is already spoken for before it lands. The cruel irony is that the more she earns, the more trapped she becomes, because she keeps converting raises into permanent monthly burdens she cannot easily escape. That same lifestyle that broadcast her success to the world is the exact thing quietly strangling her ability to build wealth. And there is a hidden cost to that trap that reaches far beyond money, the one Imani values most. Freedom. Because Whitney's lifestyle now depends on her enormous salary just to stay afloat, she cannot easily walk away from a job that drains her. She cannot take the lower-paying role she would actually love. She cannot start the business she daydreams about during her commute downtown, or take a few months off to care for an aging parent, or simply breathe through a brutal stretch at work. Her spending has handcuffed her to that cluttered desk. People call them golden handcuffs for a reason. They are forged from comfort and status, and they are no less binding for being beautiful. Imani, with her low fixed costs and her growing cushion, holds the one thing her higher-earning neighbor cannot buy back. Options: she can say no. She can take a risk or walk away from a bad situation without watching her entire life collapse. The wealth she is building is not only a figure on a screen, it is the ability to make free choices about her own life, and that kind of freedom compounds in ways no spreadsheet ever fully captures. There is also a psychological layer here that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important part of all. Money discipline is weirdly easier when you have less of it. When every dollar is visible, you pay attention. Imani knows almost exactly where her money goes, because she has to. Scarcity forces a kind of clarity. She notices the $8 subscription. She feels the cost of the impulse buy. Her smaller income acts like a tight container that keeps her focused and intentional. Abundance does the opposite. When the paycheck is large, individual purchases stop registering. A $40 dinner does not move the needle. A $300 gadget barely makes a ripple. So the high earner stops watching, because watching feels unnecessary. And money you stop watching is money that quietly leaks away in 1,000 small streams you never bothered to track. The very size of the income that should have created freedom instead creates a blurry fog where dollars vanish without a trace. If you have ever wondered how someone can make great money and still feel broke, this is a massive piece of the puzzle. They simply stopped paying attention because their income gave them permission to. This shows up most painfully the moment life goes wrong, which it always eventually does. Recent figures suggest that nearly 6 in 10 Americans could not cover a surprise $1,000 expense from savings without reaching for a credit card or a loan. A blown transmission, an emergency room visit, a sudden layoff, the sort of thing that never books an appointment. When that moment arrives for Imani, she has a cushion of several months of expenses sitting in cash, quietly waiting for exactly this. The emergency becomes an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe when the same moment arrives for Whitney. With her towering income and her hollow buffer, she has little choice but to reach for the card, and now the emergency does not only cost what it cost, it begins compounding against her at credit card interest rates. The lower earner absorbs the blow and moves on. The higher earner turns a single bad day into months of expensive debt. None of it was ever about the size of the storm. It was whether anybody had bothered to build a roof before the rain started. And that, more than any number on a paycheck, is what wealth actually feels like from the inside. Not a luxury crossover or a rooftop view, but the quiet certainty that a single bad week cannot unravel your entire life. Imani has that certainty on $50,000 a year. Whitney, for all her income, does not hold it at all. She owns the appearance of security while living without the substance of it underneath. The cushion is the real prize. Everything else is just decoration laid over a foundation that may or may not be there. So Whitney has the bigger income, the bigger obligations, and the smaller savings rate. You might think the gap between her and Imani would at least be easy to close once she wakes up. After all, she earns 3 times as much. Surely she can just catch up later. That belief that you can always catch up later is one of the most expensive lies in personal finance. And the reason comes down to a force that does not care about your salary at all: time. Compounding is the quiet machine that turns small, early contributions into enormous sums, and its single most important ingredient is not the amount you invest. It is how long that money has to grow. A dollar invested for 30 years at a long-run average return does not just grow a little. It grows to almost 8 times its original size. The same dollar invested for only 20 years grows to roughly 4 times. And invested for just 10 years, it barely doubles. The early years are the years that do the heavy lifting, and once they are gone, no amount of money can buy them back. Put a price tag on it, and the lesson gets sharper. Every year you delay starting is not simply one missed contribution. It is the loss of the single most valuable, longest growing year you will ever have. the one with the most time left to multiply. Waiting from 25 to 35 does not cost you 10 years of deposits. It costs you the decade those particular dollars would have spent compounding right at the end, when the balance is largest and the growth curve is steepest. That is the real reason the person who starts small and early almost always overtakes the person who starts large and late. Beginning beats optimizing nearly every time. Let me make that concrete because it is staggering. Imagine Imani invests her $10,000 a year steadily for 30 years. Now imagine Whitney spends her first 10 years on lifestyle and saves nothing. Then finally panics and starts investing $15,000 a year for the remaining 20 years. Here is the part that should stop you cold. Both of them end up contributing the exact same total amount of cash over their lifetimes, $300,000 each. Same dollars in. But Imani, who started earlier and let time do the work, ends up well over $300,000 richer than Whitney, who tried to make up for lost time with a bigger shovel. The shovel was never the point. The years were the point. You cannot out-earn a head start that has already been given away. This is why the person earning $50,000 who starts at 25 quietly beats the person earning $150,000 who finally gets serious at 40. The early starter is not smarter. They are not luckier. They simply refused to wait for permission to begin, and time rewarded them for it. If this is making you rethink your own paycheck, that is exactly the point, and it tells me you are the kind of person who actually wants to fix this rather than just feel bad about it. If that is you, consider subscribing, because quiet, hype-free breakdowns like this one are what I do here every single week. So far, every advantage has come from the same place: a habit quietly outrunning a salary. The next one is different. It drains high earners faster than almost anything else, and it hides in two places most people never think to connect: where your money sleeps and what your debt is doing while you sleep. Let me start with where your money sits, because this is where I see good people lose real money for no reason at all. A lot of folks, including plenty of high earners, keep large balances parked in a basic savings account at one of the big traditional banks. And in 2026, those accounts are paying almost nothing. The national average savings rate right now sits at around 0.38%. The biggest brand name banks often pay as little as 1/100%. Put $10,000 in one of those accounts for a full year, and you might earn a single dollar in interest. $1. Meanwhile, competitive high-yield savings accounts in 2026 are paying somewhere in the range of 4%, fully protected by federal deposit insurance, for the exact same dollars sitting safely in cash. That same $10,000 earns around $400 a year instead of $1. The money did not work any harder. Its owner simply moved it somewhere that respected it. A high earner who leaves a fat balance languishing at 1/100% is quietly donating their interest to the bank every single month without realizing it. A second, quieter thief works on idle cash too, and its name is inflation. Money left sitting in an account that pays almost nothing does not merely fail to grow. It actively shrinks in what it can actually buy year after year as prices drift upward all around it. The high earner with a large balance parked at 1/100% feels perfectly safe because the number on the screen never falls. Yet the purchasing power behind that number erodes while nobody is watching. Safe and standing still are not the same thing. Cash that is not earning at least the pace of rising prices behaves like a slowly melting ice cube, and a big ice cube is still an ice cube that is melting. Now the other side of the ledger, and this one is heavier. Debt. As of 2026, Americans are carrying around $1.3 trillion in credit card balances, and the interest rates on those cards are punishing, often north of 20%. Here is the cruel mirror image of compounding. The same force that builds the patient investor's fortune works in reverse against the person carrying a balance. When the high earner finances their lifestyle on credit, the interest compounds against them at a rate that no investment can reliably outrun. They are running a personal engine of wealth destruction while their salary makes them feel safe. So picture the full machine now. The high earner often keeps cash earning almost nothing, while paying brutal interest on debt that funds a lifestyle they did not need. The average earner keeps their cash somewhere that actually pays, carries little or no high-interest debt, and lets their investments compound in the right direction. Two people, opposite engines, running for decades. Is it any wonder where they each end up? And this connects to something simple that the wealthy understand and almost everyone else ignores. The way you win this game is to make the saving automatic and invisible, so your own willpower never gets a vote. Imani never relies on discipline in the moment. The money she invests leaves her account automatically on the day she gets paid, before she ever sees it, before she can feel tempted to spend it. She pays herself first and lives on what is left. Whitney does the opposite without realizing it. She spends first, lives well, and tells herself she will invest whatever is left over at the end of the month. There is never anything left over, because there is always one more reasonable upgrade waiting to absorb it. This is the difference between deciding once and deciding constantly. Automation means you make the smart choice a single time and then never have to fight yourself again. Willpower means you have to win the same battle every day for the rest of your life, and nobody wins that battle every day. The systems beat the heroics, quietly, boringly, every time. There is also a piece of pure mathematics that rewards the deliberate saver and quietly punishes the distracted one, and in 2026, the numbers are clearer than ever. Most employers offer to match a portion of whatever you put into your workplace retirement account. That matches, quite literally, free money handed to you for the simple act of saving your own. Imani contributes enough to capture every dollar of her employer's match, because turning down free money strikes her as faintly absurd. Whitney, distracted and convinced she will sort it all out later, leaves a chunk of her match untouched year after year, strolling right past free money on her way to the next upgrade. On top of that, the rules for 2026 let one person funnel up to $24,500 into a workplace retirement plan and another $7,500 into an individual retirement account, every bit of it growing inside a tax-sheltered wrapper. The average earner who fills even a slice of that space is compounding money the tax code is actively helping along. The high earner who ignores it leaves one of the few genuinely free advantages in the entire system sitting there, untouched. There is one more force at work here, and it is the one that hides behind all the others. Status. A great deal of high-income spending is not really about enjoyment. It is about signaling. The right car in the right driveway, the right address, the right watch, the right vacation, the right photos posted for an audience of people who are mostly doing the same anxious dance. Showing wealth and having wealth are almost opposites, because every dollar you spend proving you are rich is a dollar that is no longer available to actually make you rich. The uncomfortable truth is that displays of spending get rewarded with attention, while quiet discipline gets ignored. A video of someone dropping $1,000 at the mall will outperform a video of someone calmly moving $1,000 into their investment account every single time. The flashy choice looks like success. The boring choice builds it. And so the people performing wealth on the internet pull the people watching into performing it right alongside them, all of them slowly converting their futures into a costume. Imani opted out of the costume, not out of judgment and not out of some grim vow of deprivation. She simply decided that her financial security was worth more to her than the opinion of strangers who would never pay her bills. That quiet refusal is one of the most underrated wealth-building moves there is. Underneath all of this sits something even deeper than habit. Identity. Imani does not picture herself as someone going without. She pictures herself as an investor, as a person who owns a slice of her own future, and that quiet self-image makes the saving feel natural instead of painful. Whitney pictures herself as someone who has earned the right to enjoy her success, and that self-image makes every single upgrade feel deserved. Behavior almost always bends over time to match the story you tell yourself about who you are. Someone who believes they are a saver finds saving effortless. Someone who believes they have finally become a person who can afford nice things tends to look up and find the money gone. Change the story you believe about yourself, and the habits quietly rearrange themselves to fit it. Which brings us to the idea that ties this entire video together, the lever that lets the lower earner win the whole game. Knowing your number. Knowing what enough actually looks like for you. The high earner on the lifestyle treadmill never defines enough, so enough keeps moving. Every raise resets the target. Every upgrade becomes the new baseline. There is always a slightly better version of the life just out of reach, and so the finish line sprints away faster than the runner. The average earner who has decided what a good, full life genuinely requires for them has a finish line that holds still. And a finish line that holds still is one you can actually cross. This is the part nobody tells you. The wealthiest people are very often not the highest earners. They are the people who figured out what enough was, hid it, and then kept the difference instead of inflating into it. Wealth is quiet. It does not announce itself. It looks like a paid-off car, a calm bank balance, a portfolio nobody can see, and a person who sleeps soundly because they are not one bad month from the edge. So let me bring you back to those two windows from the very beginning, because the picture reads completely differently now. The person at the cluttered desk at midnight, surrounded by overdue envelopes, earning a salary most people would envy, is not failing because she earns too little. She is drowning because nothing about her finances was ever designed. Her money happened to her. The person at the quiet kitchen table with the warm mug and the open notebook, earning a third as much, is not winning because of some secret advantage. She is winning because she made a series of deliberate, unglamorous choices and then let time multiply them. Same street, same starting line a decade back. One of them built a life that looks rich. The other built one that actually is. And if you take one thing from everything we just walked through, let it be this. Your salary is the size of your shovel. But the hole you are digging, the depth of the wealth you actually build, depends almost entirely on how you use that shovel, how early you start, and whether you understand the rules of the game you are playing. Because that, in the end, is the real divide. It is not 50,000 versus 150,000. It is the person who understands how money actually works versus the person who simply hopes a bigger paycheck will save them. The high earner with the overdue envelopes was never short on income. She was short on understanding. That is the gap behind the gap, the quieter gap underneath the salary, and it is the one that decides everything. Every single thing we covered today, the savings rate, the compounding, the lifestyle creep, the automation, the difference between where your money grows and where it withers, all of it rests on one foundation, a basic, clear understanding of how personal finance actually works. Without that foundation, every other tip is just a fact floating in space, easy to nod at and impossible to use. With it, the whole picture finally comes together, and the choices that built Imani's calm life stop looking like luck and start looking like a system anyone can follow. That foundation is genuinely where any real financial journey begins. It is the starting line before the starting line, the thing that lets you avoid the expensive mistakes most people only understand in hindsight. I put together a full breakdown of exactly that, the financial literacy groundwork that makes everything else in your money life make sense, and it is the natural next step from here. The place I would point my own younger self to first if I could. Whatever your number on the paycheck says this year, the gap between earning and keeping is yours to design. Start where you are. Start small if you have to. But understand the game first and then start.